All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to First Friday Lunch. Actually, no, Black Friday Brunch. Let me put the thing up so I remember. We're calling it a Black Friday Brunch because my guest today is A. Catherine Noon, and she is actually on the Pacific Coast. So I wanted to make sure that it was more of a brunch rather than a lunch. So we're going to go ahead and I will go ahead and let A. Catherine Noon introduce herself. Hey, Catherine Noon, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on right now?
Absolutely, Chrissy. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's such a pleasure to be on Tina Holland's first Black Friday brunch lunch thingy. It's awesome. And I'm Noonie. I write as A. Catherine Noon, and my writing partner is Rachel Wilder. Together we are Noon and Wilder, and we write spicy urban fantasy romance and science fantasy, all sorts of stuff. And we're coming out with an academic kind of sexy story that has Shifter University and Mage University and all sorts of fun stuff.
That sounds exciting. So, I know one of the reasons most of you guys are here today is because we're going to talk about Author Nation. And one of the things I wanted to kind of cover a little bit is I'll go first because then that'll give Noonie time to think about her answers or whatever. So last year I kind of did a breakdown of what happened, what I thought worked, what didn't work. So some of the stuff that I really liked this year is I love the opening speaker. We had the same lead-in speaker on the opening day, which was Drew Davis. He did a great talk last year, and he did not disappoint again this year. He is, if you ever get a chance to watch him, I think he has a YouTube channel, but I haven't really dug into him that much. But he is so motivating and breaks stuff down. And I don't know that, I believe he does have some works out there, but I don't know that he's entrenched in the author community as much as some of the other speakers that they will have. So, but he is a terrific motivational speaker, really gets you pumped up. I was so excited after listening to him to go on to the rest of the conference. Some of the other things that I like is I love the breakfast they put out. They put out coffee. And I said this last year too, because that and the volunteering kind of saved my ass as far as how much money I ended up having to spend on food. So, and we could talk a little bit about some of the different things I did. I will link, there's been quite a few reviews of Author Nation, and I will link those below after we're done with this talk. And one group particular kind of talked about how to save your pennies, basically, because Las Vegas is, like most major cities, kind of expensive to eat in if you have to do it every night, so, or day or morning or all your meals. So really love Drew Davis, really love the breakfast. I loved seeing my online mentors. And what I mean by that is like people that I follow on podcasts and vlogs. I love Becca Symes talk, Joanna Penn. Ironically, one of the really true gems is I like listening to Katie Cross because she's kind of like new. She was one of the first authors to go ahead and set up her own store. And so I had kind of I don't follow her because most of her content is geared towards her readers. But when she's interviewed by other authors for training or education or whatever, I will follow her on those specific vlogs or podcasts. And she did a class on SOPs, which she's like, I know it doesn't sound sexy, but I'm like, oh no. I mean, I went because it was a class about SOPs, which tells you a lot about my corporate brain, because that's what I used to do in the corporate world, was write SOPs. And she was talking about how she writes SOPs and it kind of streamlines her business so that if she, like when she, even like when you're just you running everything, how if you have an SOP in place, like how to upload a TikTok video, that it can streamline your business as you scale up. But one of the things that I really liked about it is I'm in a number of writing organizations, including one with Noonie, which is Writers and Garden. And I was like, this is great. We can write SOPs. So when we scale up, that we have people that can just do stuff. So, and as some of our members and Writers on Garden are technically challenged. And I think it's just, especially when you have like new stuff come out, like when TikTok comes out or YouTube came out, or, I mean, I've always kind of adjusted, but I did fight a lot of things. I fought Instagram. I fought a lot of social media. I fought Facebook initially because I was a MySpace person, and that was forever ago, as all of you know. So, but the SOP class, I really, really loved that. Mark Leslie Lefebvre is another person that I follow online. He works for Drafted Digital, but he's also an author, and he does a lot of talks about things that are changing in the business. So his was more about doing stuff with your IP. Like one of the things he talked about was like large print books. And most of us have the ability to do large print books through whoever we're formatting with, whether we hire a formatter or whether we use another one. I see I lost Amanda, so maybe she will.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry.
No, I think we talked about this. I think it's like the technology of the phone. It also may be our
Yeah.
internet connections because we're both rural. So, but I love Leslie Fave. Went to Erin Wright. She is the president of Wide for the Win, and I'm public to Wide. I believe Amanda is as well. And so I went to her class, and I believe this is the last year she's going to be president of Wide for the Win. She's going to be turning the reins over to someone else. So I'm disappointed that she may not be speaking next year, but we'll see. So, and yeah, those were kind of like my highlights. And of course, networking. I got to meet new people like Mikkel and a bunch of people that are in what's the name of the group on Discord that's part of Author Nation? The Western Empire. Got to meet a bunch of people in the Western Empire, wonderful people. So, and that's always like my big thing is networking. So those were kind of my highlights. How about you?
I would say I went to a different event previously, and you had talked up Author Nation when you went last year, and it really got me curious. And the fee to go, I felt, was paid for from the pre-show content. And so Author Nation, the event, was kind of icing on the cake because I had already gotten so much educational content from when I joined, I think back in February or so. And I got, like you, I got to meet several of the people that I had worked with on Zoom and on Discord. And that was incredible to get to kind of see them and make friends and be like, oh my gosh, I know you already, even though I'm just seeing you for the first time.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed going to dinner with people. I got to meet some folks that are working on the behind the scenes stuff. And we had dinner the first night we were there. Very loud place. It turned out that it was the World Series. So bad timing to go out for dinner because it was like, so how are you at the wah? And yeah, that was interesting. Yep. But like you, I also found myself strategizing how to find food. I'm working hard on a nutrition plan and like getting in shape. And so I don't want to eat out a lot because it's full of fat and carbs and salt and all the stuff we know better. And so it was interesting to kind of brainstorm like, okay, what's portable? How do I want to show up for this? And that was really helpful. I'm looking to see, I think that's something I would do differently is have a little bit more of a formal meal plan so that I don't get bored.
One thing that I did, and I'll grab my stuff here. Hold on. So I purchased this portable kettle. Don't tell Horseshoe I did that, but I packed it in my bag. And it's only like 34 fluid ounces. So it is not very big once you take it out of the packaging. And my sister got it for me for my birthday. She works for Target. I picked it up at Target. And she got it for like $10 because she works there and used like all of her discount points and whatever. So it ended up being pretty affordable. But that was the thing, because last year when I went, one of the things that the coffee, if you're a coffee drinker or a tea drinker and any kind of like hot beverage, cold beverage, whatever, one of the things is that's super expensive to eat or drink or whatever, but the food is really expensive. So I packed that. So I had tea like every morning in my room. I prefer Earl Grey, but I just need some kind of caffeine. And that got me through till I got down to the coffee bar that Author Nation had set up. The other thing I did is I packed like breakfast bars, which I think I had a breakfast bar just about every day. And then I just grabbed, like you said, you're kind of trying to avoid carbs and whatever. And they did have muffins and like cinnamon rolls and stuff like that. But I just had a breakfast bar and then whatever fruit they had, which was generally apples, oranges, bananas, kind of the basic whatever. And I would grab some of that and put it in my bag and have it for later as a snack. And then I volunteered as a Time Lord this year. So I ended up having my lunch was provided for Tuesday through Thursday. So that
Awesome.
was something that I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll probably keep doing that because if they keep providing a lunch, that just sort of paid for itself. And then they comped my ticket this year as a volunteer. I got my ticket comped. My room wasn't, but my ticket was. And then the provided lunch. So when they issued the feedback forms, I'm like, if you do this again, last year they didn't comp tickets, but they did this year. So, and it might have been because they needed volunteers. I don't know. But I said, even that lunch is like enough to kind of make me do it again. So that was, I agree there. But yeah, some of the things that, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about, or should we move on to things that would do differently?
Well, I would say I really found helpful a couple different things. Drew Davis's Cube of Creativity presentation really crystallized something that I've been thinking a lot about in terms of I'm a 30,000 foot thinker and my writing partner is a detail thinker. And sometimes bridging that can be challenging. And the way that he was able to put that into context of there are 4 things that we need to do in order to frame our creativity effectively, I found really, really helpful. So if you didn't go to that and you are on the electronic ticket, I highly recommend you watch that. The other thing I really liked that was new this year, they had an LGBTQ plus or LGBTQIA plus meetup, and that was awesome to get to be in community with people, especially in the broader political climate in which we find ourselves right now. I didn't feel as safe as I otherwise might have because I write gay romance and I showed up with my personal body, right? And so the fear is that there's going to be people that want to wish me harm or whatever. And so having that meetup be available to us and to kind of realize, oh, hey, I'm not alone was really, really helpful. Plus, it just put me in contact with some really amazing authors and poets and coaches and editors, all sorts of stuff. So that was awesome. The one thing I wanted to say is I didn't hear you define what an SOP is. Could you say more about specifically what that is for people that aren't familiar with it?
So if you've worked in the corporate world or a mechanical world, you know, where they do build things or whatever, one of the terms that's often used is SOP, standard operating procedure. And and it's basically, how do you do something, any given task? You know, how do I read an email, forward an email? And a lot of this stuff is sort of for anybody who's grown up in the age of tech, you know, they've kind of already know these things. But if you wanted to, how do I upload to TikTok for the first time? And one of the things that Katie had talked about is if they have an SOP, use theirs. You know, just go ahead and you make your form and then you have a link to theirs. And then what she does is she has a link for her staff, because I think she's got a staff of like 5. She has a link to the site and has their SOP. Any notes that she has on theirs, especially if you're working like uploading books to Amazon and they've changed the format, then she has to go back through and see if what they have out there is still relevant. If they have a video, she'll use that. Otherwise, she'll make one. And because some of us are different learners, right? So she kind of compensates for that. So it was really interesting, but it made me think, like, we have Writers and Garden, and as we grow and we end up bringing in more people and maybe new people that don't know how to do our newsletter, for instance, how would we do that? You know, how would we make it so they know how to do it? We're going to be switching our platform for our newsletter, but that'll be another thing. Like, how do we create an SOP to make that streamlined? So like, you know how to use the new platform, but I don't, right? So maybe it'll be some learning and putting it out there. And maybe we'll have somebody join the group that really wants to do the newsletter. And it's like, oh, okay, here's the SOP. Go ahead and do it. Let us know if you have problems and we'll make changes and blah, blah, blah. But I got the point behind doing the SOPs, especially when you think about, you and I do most of the work ourselves in our author business. You know, we're doing the we're doing the uploading, the formatting, we're doing all that. But as we scale up and you want to get rid of the things that are not working for you, like Drew said, eliminate something,
Right.
eliminate the easy, eliminate the hard. And it's like, well, you're going to have a plan to scale up. And so that was one of the things I liked about her talk. I think the other thing you had mentioned that you took all the online classes. And I will say this, you guys, if you did not get a chance to go to Author Nation, if you buy a ticket for Author Nation next year, you would be able to get in on all of the digital classes, the recordings, everything starting in January. So if it's something you're kind of thinking about,
it won't be for the previous year, because I can't see the 2024 Author Nation classes.
No, it would just be for 2025, right?
Yeah.
It would just be for 2025. And the other thing is too, is if you are like kind of strapped for cash a little bit, the other thing you can do is you can buy their digital ticket, which would give you access to all of that as well.
Absolutely.
So,
and the Discord is free.
Yeah,
the Discord is free.
Yeah, they have a Discord, and that is
it's
absolutely
hugely
free.
Valuable.
Yeah.
So, I would say definitely that. I also really liked the graphic novel presentation. It felt like kind of a film class.
Yeah.
And he basically taught it in terms of, here's what I want if you're going to be submitting to me. And since we are submitting to him, it was kind of like a masterclass in giving you a leg up in how to do that in a way that might result in you getting selected for the project. And the project I'm speaking about is the anthology in 2026 is going to be a graphic novel or comic book. And it's got a theme, and it's a very specific submission style, much closer to screenwriting than it is to novel writing. And I've never done a screenplay. And so it was really good to sit in that. And I thought he was really funny, but also very helpful. Like it felt like a really good university class.
Yeah.
And the other one I want to shout out to is Bradley Charbonneau. He did a class called YouTube for Authors, and he was hysterical. And
can you talk about what you're doing now because of that class?
Yes. So he issued a challenge to everybody, and he said, I want you to stand up and call up YouTube on your phone. And we're like, why are we doing this right now? And he said, this is going to be the worst video you ever make. And we're all like, do you get this guy? And then he said, and this was brilliant, he said, every video you make after will be better.
Yeah.
And the light bulb went on of like, oh, all right, the only way to get to Carnegie Hall is practice. So he had us do a 15-second short, and he's like, no, don't film anybody because you don't have their permission. So point it up at the ceiling or down at the floor. So Rachel and I did that. And we did our first 3 videos from his class. And then he issued a challenge for doing 30 shorts in 30 days. And so I've been doing that on my little YouTube that is now the Noon Hour, which was my intention to do ages ago, a podcast. And I was going to read books that I loved. And I got all set to do it. And I had the book in my hand. I was going to read Anne McCaffrey. And I sit down and get all ready. And I'm like, wait a second. I don't have the rights to do this. It's under copyright. So I thought, crap, what do I do now? And it took me an embarrassingly long time, as in months, before it occurred to me, okay, dummy, you're a writer. You can read your own stuff. So my very first one was Sir Francis Bacon. So all respect to Bradley Charbonneau. I've already done my worst videos. And those are my very first podcasts. So,
well, you get to learn some of the tools of running it off of your phone, which I am like super crappy at. So I run everything, as everyone can see, via StreamYard to YouTube because there's more bells and whistles, and it's easier for me to break down in my brain. But I kind of wish I had gone to that class, which I will do when they go ahead and upload them all or whatever in January. So yeah, you have taken a lot more advantage of this community than I have. So, and one of the things that Amanda did that I did not do, and I have huge regrets about, is you participated in this year's anthology in 2025. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So yes, two things. First, just to put a pin off the kind of finish up the
Oh,
YouTube for authors.
yay.
The gentleman that wrote the book on it, Dale Roberts, is one of the most big-hearted, generous people I've ever met. I literally stopped him in the hallway to thank him for showing, because he came up at the end of Bradley Charbonneau's talk and kind of participated with him and shared his expertise. And I thanked him for that. And he said, well, do you have any questions? And I thought, this man's busy. Like, he's literally a 6-figure author, and here he is in a hallway talking to me. And he was so kind, and he just answered my questions. So I, of course, immediately bought the book. Highly recommend this. It's short, it's easy. It's like an SOP for YouTube. So basically, with the anthology, so Rachel and I had a prolonged period of writer's block. I didn't realize that I had clinical depression. I already knew I had post-traumatic stress from child abuse, but I didn't realize how bad it was. And it got really triggered. And so I started treatment like in 2013, 2014, and then we moved to Washington State in 2018. So we didn't write really anything for probably 6 years. And about 2 years ago, something shifted, and I'm a little superstitious about naming it because I don't want it to go away. But we have finished now 4 books, and we're working on our 5th. So we're going to start releasing again in February. And we've agreed on a schedule of probably 2 books a year plus a Christmas or some kind of one-off short story. Enter Author Nation. And Joe Solari, who owns Author Nation now, and this is his second show, the 2025 version. And I started to see in him something that I see. I've worked with entrepreneurs my whole career, and I could see something in him that is reminiscent of that. Like, that he really understands how small businesses work, how to become profitable, how to not let the $50 tasks overwhelm the $500 tasks. And his vision, as I was understanding it, is that he wants to create not just as he calls it, a show, or what I would call a conference. He's actively building a community. And to be honest with you guys, this is the community I was trying to build back when Tina and I met with Evanston Writers Workshop. And I had a belief that a multi-genre group could work. And I kept getting told by industry insiders, no, it can't work. The genres are separate, da-da-da-da-da-da. And meanwhile, we were doing conferences. We did 3 of them a year, one of them a year for 3 years, 3 of them a year, God. But we both work full time and we're authors. And Joe Solari is not an author. This is his business. And he supports other authors. He does kind of like the finance side for creatives and stuff. So he really has an inside window into successful author businesses. And as I started realizing that, I just decided, you know what, if he thinks that this romance anthology is a good idea, why don't we do it? And so the minute they announced it, I told my writing partner, and I'm like, we need to be in this anthology. And we both were super busy. She had some family medical stuff going on. I had stuff going on. And we're like, we have to be in it. And we brainstormed kind of poutingly of like, well, I don't really want to do this, but if I was going to do it, it would be like this. And so we came up with Bird in the Hand, which introduces readers to our new kind of world of bird shifters and the avian university and stuff. And so we decided to be part of it. And I've been part of multi-author genre or anthologies before, but if you make money, sometimes it's just for exposure. If you make money, it's been $25, $30, maybe $50.
Yeah.
We debuted the Kickstarter. We finished out the Kickstarter at 233%. And we sold at the show.
Yep.
And the paper copies are $30 and the special edition are $80. And when they're gone, they're gone.
Yep.
So needless to say, if you want one, you need to go on the link for the signing store and see if there are any still available, because I sold my little butt off at the show. And so did author Kay McCoy. Woo, woo. We had tables next to each other. So what was really amazing about that is that it rekindled my love of writing community and of doing fun things with other authors, which is what kind of led into doing the YouTube. And it's what led into wanting to be in the anthology next year. And it's juried, so we may not get in. We've already submitted, but they're going to make their decision in January. And I told Rachel, I'm like, anything that Joe wants to do, we need to be in on.
Yep.
If he came out and said, we're going to do an anthology of horror, then I guess we're going to write some horror.
Yeah.
And
we're going to give it a try anyway, right?
Exactly. But you learn through doing. You broaden your abilities. Like I'm going to be coming out actually with a solo title based on a 2008 competition that I did called March Badness. And it's 31 short stories. We got the prompt in the morning. We had to write the story by the afternoon. And I learned so much, but those stories are all over the place. Like they're totally different depending on what the prompt was. And you stretch and learn as a writer when you do that. So that's kind of the very long answer to why the anthology, because it was fun and I learned.
Yeah, that's true. So let's get into a little bit, because like I said, I that was one of my biggest regrets, is not doing it. And it's so disappointing because I was like, like you said, you kind of did it kicking and screaming a little bit, but I'm like, I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I couldn't, which is so dumb because I had started a story and then I think I was working on something else or whatever. And I'm like, that was so dumb. I should have just.
But I want to interrupt you though. It's not dumb. We do the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
And if there's too much on our plate, and you've had a lot this year, if there's too much on our plate, then there's too much on our plate. And I think we need to first with ourselves learn how to catch those negative thoughts that we're all programmed with, right? Especially in productivity culture. Productivity culture is all about do. And I, God help me, have done that. I used to talk about drink all the coffee and do all the things. And I had no idea that I was headed for what I was headed for. And I hit a brick wall hard. Right. Yeah. So that's the only thing I would say is you're not dumb. You're a lot of things that dumb.
Here's the thing. I didn't realize how big of a thing it would be. And so the FOMO at the signing was huge. I'm like,
I wanted you in it. I wasn't mad at you, but I'm like, God damn it, Chrissy, why didn't you go in this? So yeah, I feel you.
Well, and I think that kind of gets back to another thing. Like one of the things is sometimes the universe will tell you things. And one of the things, like the very first day, so I was in a Time Lord, or Time Lady rather, which is a person that kind of keeps the speakers on track in a room. And I was in Gold Room. And so I went to a lot of these speakers. My partner for that room was Karen, and I totally don't remember her last name. As a matter of fact, I don't think she even had it on her thing because she didn't do a signing or whatever. She's very introverted. And Karen and I split the room up based on who we wanted to see at the other things. So like I had most of the day, I think with the Tuesday was split half, the Thursday was split half, but I had most of the room on Wednesday, which was fine because I got to see all the things. But recurringly through the conference, the same word came up, which is going to be my word for 2026, sustainability. And that's the thing, is like, I want to be writing up until, I have a heart attack because I watch a sexy man video or something. I want to be writing whatever it is, lumberjack video or whatever is my thing at the time when I'm 80.
No fair. Because I'm going to lecture you about don't talk about death. And then you're like, no, I'm going to die of a heart attack because I had an orgasm. Like, okay.
It's kind of the thing with like these SOPs. I'm in a number of writing groups, and one of the things that I will always, this is my standard for, because I don't usually talk about death, but I'm like, we need to have a plan in case I'm abducted by aliens, which seems to work pretty well for people because I'm in like a horror group, mostly because they do marketing. I do not write horror, although for them I did write one of my first mysteries. And I've written 2 mysteries this year under a different pen name, but I don't know that I'll go into novel, but if I decide romance is not I just love romance too much. But one of the things that came up was sustainability. Like I want to be in this career as long as I can. And so it's kind of like, how do you not burn out? How do you not whatever? And so I really did like that because there was a track for if you wanted to make all the money. I want to just make money. I want to be successful. But there was also kind of a track for newbies. There was a track for whatever, or you could cater that track. It just seemed that almost, I'm going to say like 80% of the classes I went to had a theme of sustainability. running through them, like how to scale up and sustain it. I mean, that's the other thing, is how do I make it so if I do scale up, I can run it? Because you and I have both met authors that were huge back in the boom of ebooks that are not writing anymore, or not to the degree that they were. And part
or
of
the
it
ones that are like, you have to put out a book a year, a book a month, and do the productivity culture crap.
Yeah.
And then, 6 years later, like, oh my God, you guys, I'm so burnt out. What craft should I do? And it's like, okay, we've got to get better about being honest with ourselves and with our intimates about, hang on a second, is this productivity culture, or is this something I really want to do? Rachel and I talked about that a lot, because they talked about the ones that I went to, because I was really interested in, and this is a shout out to Jocelyn Lindsay, book coach. Woot, woot. We talked about, how do I want to position myself at Author Nation? What do I want to come away with? Because I like all the things. And in the VIA, I'm like top as learner, love of learning. Same with strengths profile, learner. And how do I do that in a targeted way? And we agreed that I would look at marketing stuff, because we're launching Caden, and the whole launch process has completely changed in the last 6 years. Go figure. And so for me, it was about building the relationship with the reader and setting up the expectations ahead of time. Because we were originally going to do a rapid release for Caden's series. There's 4 books in the first part of the series, the way we envisioned it originally. And we're like, okay, we're going to do a rapid release, and we're going to do this. And because I had gone to a bunch of stuff last year that said rapid release, rapid release, rapid release. And several different people, Jocelyn among them, said, well, what expectations can you maintain? And I'm like, well, Christ, I can't do 4 books like all the time. I can right now because we've got them in the can, but next year, I don't know. But I can commit to X. And so Rachel and I really got kind of detailed about, and this I think comes back to Drew Davis and the Cube of Creativity. What was so helpful about that, I've been to a lot of, and I teach how to brainstorm and collect the ideas and create the ideas. I'm excellent at that. It's how do you bound them so that idea there is the one that takes flight and becomes something. Because you can't take 500 ideas and actualize all of them. It's just not possible.
Correct.
And so that's what this is about, of like, all right, Rachel, do you want to do it this way, or do you want to do it that way? And right now we're struggling because we are in the very fortunate position of, we have 4 books in the can. The 5th book is like figured out, and we're working on it actively now. And we got an idea for a parallel series. Nice. And here's where the Cube of Creativity comes in of, well, hang on. We have a schedule and we wanted to finish this. This one can come in, but is now the right time. And so we've started doing a future story ideas area, and then we'll have our brainstorming talk and everything, and we'll record it so that when we're ready to look at it, we can say, all right, of all these 10 ideas, which one do we want to work on next? And we can that also puts us in a position to be able to ask the readers in the newsletter, what do you want to see next? You can have A, B, C, D, E. What are you interested in?
And then we can say, based on that. I did a newsletter. Yeah, I did a blog post, and it was the sequel to Courtesan. It was Alchemists. And
see, I thought you read that because I told you to, because I love that. I'm so glad I was one of the reasons.
That got the most votes. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll work on this one then. And that's true. Yeah. And I think talking about sustainability and getting into a little bit about this, like some of the things that I would change differently next year, if you're ready to go there. Yeah. So last year I did if you watch my video from last year about Author Nation, I think next year, maybe Amanda and I will do this again on Black Friday, because I think this is kind of fun. Let us know what you think in the comments. So last year I planned to leave earlier, which I did, which I was so glad because of the whole FAA thing. And then I was going to look at staying at Paris or Flamingo. I did not do that. I stayed at Horseshoe. It was the most affordable. It will be moving to Paris, I think, not this year, but formally in a couple of years. Yeah.
2027 and 28, 26.
Yeah, because I think the contract with Horseshoe runs out at the end of 2026. And so I think they're going to move it to Paris or maybe somewhere, maybe another Caesar's.
No, they said Paris. Okay. No. They said Paris is 27 and 28.
Okay. So I planned to network more, which I did do. And then I was going to do less volunteering, which I did do. I actually ran two. I worked last year during the day. I worked as a Time Lord. And then I worked as a room monitor, which are the people in the yellow vests that kind of help you where to go and stuff like that. A lot of the
Right.
other volunteers call them security, though. So, but next year, one of the things I did, and I had this on my list last year, was to skip Reader Nation, but I didn't. I ended up going, and I keep it on there just in case, like flight wise, I could get out earlier or something. This year, that will totally be dependent on whether I get in, because I didn't write a short story, but I wrote the pitch because I'm like, I can write the story. If they take the pitch, I can write the story. But I was kind of like, I don't have the spoons to write the whole story. I did like plot it out so it won't be, and it might be better in a lot of ways because you can give that, you have to give them like scenes or whatever when you're doing
Right.
it. So it might work out okay.
Right.
So I may or may not skip Reader Nation. I'm thinking of entering later and exiting earlier, which I don't know if I will do that, just because the room was, it was cheap, one of the cheaper rooms in the immediate area, but it was still kind of expensive by the time I got all done, got done with it. So I might enter later, exit earlier, which may be a thing because now they are not going to be running on the Monday, which they had vendor day on the Monday, but next year they're going to have vendor day on Tuesday. And then Wednesday and Thursday are the class days, part of Friday, but then Friday leads into Reader Nation, going Friday, I think half of Friday and all day Saturday. So I am very curious what that's going to look like. And that may make a lot of decisions on how long I stay and all that other stuff. So, I'll volunteer again, just because the lunch is nice. It also gives me a chance to network with people. And then I participate in the anthology, which I already did. And then the other thing is I kind of have it on my list to stay elsewhere. Maybe we'll see, because as affordable as like some of the offsite locations are, other than Paris, which is not cheaper than Horseshoe, but other than Paris, it's going to be a hike over. But I knew people that stayed at Caesars. Last year, I think people stayed at Ellis Island. So you could stay at other places, but you're going to have to do the huff over. So, and you just did the huff from Rachel's, and I'm sure that wasn't as convenient, but even because
Well,
Rachel lives in Las Vegas.
I was gonna say, I think it would be fun to do an Airbnb. And
Mm.
if we got like 3 or 4 people together that we share it, the cost will be lower. We have access to a kitchen, which means better food, and we can control our diet better. And then there's opportunities for networking and stuff, and without having to feel pressured. The other thing I noticed, and it's kind of the 400-pound gorilla, is a lot of folks got con cred. And I think that that's partly because of the fact that it's a smoking environment, which I have to say was disgusting.
I was gonna say I didn't have it on my or I have it on the very bottom, is to pack stuff for a cold, because I ended up getting the con crud, whatever it was,
Yeah.
about 3 days in,
Yeah.
and and then I gave it to a bunch of other people. Yay! But
Yeah.
last year I packed, like, I remember I packed Dayquil tablets, cough drops, and you should probably pack cough drops. Sorry, I bumped my thing. You should probably pack cough drops or something anyway, just because of the desert environment and if you're going to be speaking a lot. So
Yeah.
I know I packed all those things last year and didn't this year, which was so, I'm like, why
Huh.
didn't you do that? You know better. And so a lot of people like gave me cough drops. Rachel walked over during the signing and gave me cough drops, and I was telling people, I was like, I did not feel good. And which Amanda said I could tell because you were sitting down. And I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
stood for like the first like 2 hours, and then I was like, nope, I gotta sit. I just,
Yeah.
so bad. So
Well, and you
bad.
guys, Tina is so professional at the book signings that I've seen her in. She's amazing and she owns that table. And I looked over and I told Rachel, I'm like, I don't think Chrissy's doing so hot because she was just sitting down and you looked amazing. I don't mean that. Like, unless somebody knew you, you wouldn't be able to tell. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
you could
yeah, because
tell.
it was still engaging, but I'm like, I just couldn't. I'm like, I just have to sit. I got to go get some water. I took a break for my. That was one of the nice things about sharing a table, is because we could watch the table when the other person wasn't there. So And in a lot of ways, this signing was more successful than last year's signing. Like, I actually had somebody buy something from the signing store. And I was like,
Awesome.
that didn't happen at all last year. So somebody went out to the store and bought my book and then, came to the table. But I was so disorganized this year. I was like, it's kind of a miracle I made it there. So I'm just
See,
like,
I will totally. It puzzles me that that's where you feel, because I absolutely think that we will do the signing. And it's not necessarily for the reasons you think. It's partly to show up as an author.
Yeah.
And partly because being able to meet people in person reminded me why I do this. And it's like Tammy, oh fiddlesticks, the newsletter ninja.
Oh, Tammy Labreck?
Labreck.
Okay,
it's like she says in her book, Newsletter Ninja, she says in there, you are a rock star. And she makes the point, you don't probably feel like one, and that doesn't matter, because to readers, you are a rock star. And so what I told Rachel was, the reason we're here is because of that. And we need to show up and act like it. And it was really fun stepping into that, because I've said this before. I think book signings are trade shows. And it's really easy to get caught up in the whole, oh my God, what if nobody likes me? Because I fall into that myself. I was bullied in school. So it's like, oh my gosh, what if nobody, I throw a party and nobody comes? That's not how it works. And I've learned from watching you and other authors that the objective at a signing isn't necessarily to sign things. So what we did, we had a QR code to our newsletter. And I told Rachel, our goal here today is to sell the anthology and signups for the newsletter and build that relationship with readers, because that, until I get to 100 engaged subscribers, that's what I've decided my business phase is I'm in that building, that looking for my ideal reader. And so it was a lot of fun. And we stopped people. There was a lady that was walking, she was kind of mission driven, and we made eye contact, and I just said, hey, what do you like to read? And she almost tripped over herself, because I don't think she expected the question. And she came over and we chatted. And I would recommend that to anybody signing, because we all are so used to going to retail stores. Hi, can I help you? And we all know what we're going to say, like, ew, get away from me. And we do it in all sorts of polite ways, but we don't like that, right? People are starving to be asked questions.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that I would maybe bow out is October was very busy for me. I do a lot of local signings. So I'm a member of the Morehead Friends writing group, which is mostly a horror and fantasy writing group, but we do a ton of trade shows. We're in the leader, Chris, has managed to get most of our anthologies into the bookstores. And so I'm on pretty much from like once we finish working for the summer, I'm on from September all the way through. So it's not necessarily that I don't think that there's value, because even I last year did the signing and got 25 people to sign up for my newsletter list who have not left. So they're they're liking the content. So that I do believe, like you said, there's a QR code, there's whatever. I know I've always meant to do this, is I've always meant to give them like a little square or whatever with the QR code on back. But I put on my bookmarks this year. I ended out all my bookmarks, because I went out and I was like, do you need a bookmark? Do you need a bookmark? And so there's a QR code right on there. They can go out to my website and check out my books. And so I think that part is good. But it was, for me personally, it's like I already do so many signings that I'm like, do I want to be on? And I'm a total extrovert. So I love talking to people. But I also have to say, like, this year, my energy was so low, partially, I think, because of the crud. But I was like, when I was done doing Time Lord stuff for the day, I'm like, I'm going to my room. I got to rest. I got to whatever. And part of it is to take care of myself so that I could really be on again the next day. But yeah, I don't know. So it's always an on the fence thing. If I'm lucky enough to make it into the anthology, totally gonna do the signing, not even a question.
See, I would say do it. My decision for me is what I said earlier. Whatever Joe Solari does, I'm in. And I don't say that like from a culty standpoint. I just mean the guy is sharp as a tack. And he is looking for ways to help us get exposure and build sustainable businesses. And he says that over and over and over again. Yeah. And so my feeling is I'm going to show up, and it might be I don't have a lot of readers in the first year or two, but I'll be loud throughout the year and build the whatever, the pressure, the FOMO, the whatever, the excitement of not only do you get to see me and Rachel, you also get access to over 200 independent signing authors that are amazing and smart and that are changing the face of publishing. Yeah. And so for me, that's as valuable as doing things in my community. And we did a local event too, and I think you coached me through that. So I do want to do more of that. I would love to maybe at another time. I don't know how much longer we have today, but Joe made arrangements with a store in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And all that they stock is independent books. And I want to start doing more of that, like get our stuff into independent booksellers so that readers that want that can find us. Yeah. That's a great idea. The other thing I think too is like, one of the things, I guess in one of the sessions, I don't remember, they asked how many people were unpublished. And the answer was overwhelming. It was like 60%. So I think that's the other thing is not only is this a multi-genre conference, but it is I haven't self-published. Well, and I saw traditionally published authors said this. I saw Kathy Maxwell there, and she may have done the signing. I'm not sure, but I guess you have to register for Author Nation to do the signing. So because we get precedence over any outside people. But I think that when people that are in traditional publishing, because I'm not aware that she's indie published at all, are coming to the conference, and I started during the conference, not during whatever, are coming to the conference to learn something, he's on the right track. Yep. And if you're a new author and you're like, is it worth it? Well, Amanda and I, for a while, have both been out of the business long enough that we're still sort of newbies when it comes. We're newbies when it comes to TikTok. We're newbies when it comes to Instagram and how to utilize social media for marketing. There are those classes, and there are probably less craft classes, like less how to do. I mean, I saw a few, but there weren't as many as there were last year. And I think that that's the thing is when you start building this community, like if you were to go out to the Discord and join the Western Empire, you would learn everything you needed to know about craft in your genre right there without even having to go. And this, I think, is geared a little bit more towards the business side, which a lot of authors are not intuitively like geared that way. You know, they're not wanting to look at spreadsheets. I mean, some of them are, but I think if you feel sometimes, or they feel like they are not creative that way, like I can't do it, you go to this conference and you'll learn how to do your budget, your whatever. I mean, there's a lot of that basic business stuff that we need to know as authors that sometimes we don't think we need to know, especially if you've been in traditional publishing, because sometimes somebody else does it for you and all you have to do is the writing part of it. So. Well, and newbies also, a lot of times I will hear them talk and they think if they just have a great idea, that's all they need, and they'll throw it up on Amazon and they'll be a bestseller. And, you know, Amanda Hawking was a massive outlier. Yeah. And where is she now? And so it's like understanding how the business works, but also Jocelyn Lindsay talks a lot about this in her classes about how to sustain and how to grow as an author. And she said something to me that was really interesting. That the digital first publishers really did authors like Rachel and me a disservice in the sense that they gave us validation, but no training. Yeah. And when she said it, something in me really resonated with that because we were published now, which meant that we were no longer readers, we were no longer wannabes, but there wasn't like a mechanism for really learning. And when I remember when I reached out to my editor at the time and I said, so can we talk about marketing? She said, well, we don't really do that for you. And so at the time I remember thinking, well, I mean, if I sell more, you do well. So why is that not part of it? Yeah. And back in the day, the traditional publishing relationship was, in theory anyway, it doesn't always come out this way in practice, was to do that and was to develop. And then the agent kind of took over that role. Again, not always, but
Yep.
the
Yep.
ideal is that they really nurture you and they develop your writing skills, they develop your marketing, and then they really nurture you as an author. And then, rising tide lifts all boats. So
Right.
I feel like
Right.
that's what this is for. And it's funny, I submitted several craft workshops and I know you did too. And I think that just wasn't the vibe that they were going for on this conference, which I think, what is our job as authors, right? But write the best product we can and then get attention on it.
Yeah.
We don't control if the reader buys, but we can start to influence. Can the reader find us? Can we build that relationship that makes them want to buy? Which might lead really well into the book flood if you want me to tee you up like that.
So actually, I think we will wrap up the Author Nation conference conversation. For those of you that have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments below and I will check them and we'll get them answered. And maybe we'll have Noonie on again. So
I'd love that.
whenever that's
Thank
convenient. So
you.
what Noonie is talking about is book flood. And for those of you that joined me on Halloween when I read a short story, I'm going to be doing it again on Christmas Eve. But I thought, which is also known as Jólabókaflóð, and I'm probably saying it wrong because I'm more of a Norwegian and it's Icelandic, but it's basically Yule book flood or Christmas book flood. And what it is it's a tradition in Iceland where they give each other books on Christmas Eve and then spend the night reading them. Like, how author readery is that? So I thought what would be fun is let me invite other authors to read their works or their short stories or works in progress or whatever it is. And so far, I think we have a cast of about 6 or 7 right now. And we're kind of finalizing the details. If you are an author and you are interested in it, email me and I will send you the form. So do you have anything else to say?
I'm so excited to be here and get to have this conversation. I love talking shop with you as always. And this has been a while that we've been saying, hey, we should do this for our fans because it's really interesting for us at least. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll get more information about Reader Nation. So those of my fans that are readers and would rather go to the Reader Nation portion of it, it's going to be longer. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do not craft classes, but reader classes about genre and stuff like that. And helping panels, probably. I wouldn't be surprised if they move some of the panels to like the Reader Nation portion, because that would make a lot more sense. So, so we'll see what Joe comes up with, but yeah, well, raise all boats. So that's it. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and next First Friday lunch was actually going to be next week, which is December 5th, 11:30. And I'm sorry I missed you guys because I was at Author Nation and then I had the crud for another week. But I thought, hey, let's do a Black Friday brunch and talk about Author Nation, and invited Nudie to come on with me. So go ahead and join me next week for lunch. Pencil me in for lunch. See you then.